what she's saying about AI and what's happening now into the future, there's a lot to be said about that.
Great, thank you. Next, Jaco, I see you have a question.
Yeah, also maybe more of a statement. One of the benefits of the project working with Carrie and her team was that we really struggled in the beginning to really get the project clearly defined. And Carrie came in on the meeting, and with her experience, I want to say she whipped us into shape within 5 minutes. And that made a huge difference on the project. I remember during a presentation where companies gave feedback on the projects, there was a pharmacist from UC Davis, and he mentioned that this is his 4th year working on the project or with them. And he said the biggest benefit is that every year he developed this ability to better define the project, which leads to a better outcome. And this is our 2nd year working with UC Davis and Carrie. And I can see it this year. We are thinking about what we want to achieve so much better. One of the things that during the project came out is that we did a data analysis to identify the best web pages that has got the best potential for optimization. And just from a benefit perspective, we went from maybe 8 to 10 hours in doing that and analyzing a website to now where we can get that done within an hour, hour and a half. So that's a significant benefit to us.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jaco. David, I see you have a question of your own.
Yeah, so Carrie, I think there's a lot of interest from the participants in your program and how to become involved with your program. I just have a question on how do you decide which projects to work on? And I assume a lot of companies approach you with ideas. How do you decide which ideas you can really, your work can benefit and which maybe need to be reformatted or thought through differently to achieve a good solution?
Yeah, great question. So the first step is to have a conversation with me, and we talk about, is there a business problem? And then is there data available? Either sometimes do they have internal data, like at Standard Insights, that they can share with us? Or like with BroadVision Marketing, is there external data, like what is Google putting on top that we could scrape and assemble? So I help them figure out what data sources and what kinds of algorithms are able to do that. And then from there, we look at things like, is the company able to devote an hour a week to meeting with students? Does the company look like they would provide a good partnership with students? We do it by Zoom and also in person. And so, yes, and we work with everything from teeny weeny companies, single person startups where the spouse barely let them out of the garage, all the way up to Fortune 500 companies. Well, I guess, yeah. So some people ask, you do need to be a company. So we like them to be LLCs or, incorporated somewhere. And then the other thing we really look for is good data and somebody who's going to give the students a good experience. And also, sometimes it looks like it's not quite a fit this year, but we'll come back and I can help them say, do X and Y, and then next year we'll put you in much better shape for it.
Carrie, while we wait for other people to raise their hands and become unshy, I wanted to ask you a little bit about, most people seem to lump AI and automation and robotics all in the same bucket. And I loved your explanation about AI and threatening certain work elements. But I'd like to ask you maybe to go a little bit outside your element and talk about automation and robotics. In my mind, that tends to be the greatest threat to the lower trained or lower educated workforce. Certainly being a farmer's son, I saw how machinery impacted the farm. And I'm thinking when we have more autonomous vehicles running around and doing things like that, people without special training are going to be threatened in that way. But I see it as two different threats. Can you comment?
A little bit. So the text-based GPT things where you're typing stuff into it and it's giving you words back, that is going to be much more of an impact on these college-educated jobs because that's what they do all day is they sit and type. Yes. Not to make everybody feel super basic in their job, but that's what they do. But then if you look at more of a physical job where you're moving things, it's actually harder to have a robot replace that. It is amazingly difficult to teach a robot to pick up a cup. It is crazy hard to have an autonomous driving vehicle. That's why all of those CAPTCHA things ask you to mark a traffic light or a sidewalk. They're gathering that for training data because they still don't have it as good as they need it to be. So just to say that it is extremely difficult if you have a 3D problem where there's motion because you need to get the computer vision and the computer motion integrated fast enough. So there will definitely be impact, but it's harder than it looks to replace that.
Thank you so much. Dave, I see you have a question.
So I actually have a comment. There are a lot of people on this call who might be thinking, how do I actually apply this, or how would I apply this in my work? And in organizing this talk, I just wanted to say that Jaco had a really interesting insight, which was you don't necessarily have to have the data analytics for your company to improve your operations. I think what BroadVision Marketing also thought about was, what's some research that Carrie and her team could do that would benefit my clients, that would benefit the people that I serve? And so for those of you thinking about, is there a project that can help you benefit in your business, think about your clients' needs and maybe some research that Carrie and her team can do to help them. So that increases your value as a trusted advisor to the clients that you serve. So that was my comment. And then Carrie, just another question, personal to me. My son works as a paralegal in an immigration attorney law firm, and he started using ChatGPT about a year ago to do research on experts and expertise that companies want to bring in to the United States. But I just wonder if you and your team have done any work with law firms and what that might be, or if you haven't, where you can see this could work well in a law firm.
Yeah, so we haven't done a project yet with a law firm to my knowledge, but we are in talks with 2 or 3 law firms to look at seeing about bringing them on. And I can tell you just very generally, one of the challenges is with an employment law firm. And one of their questions is, can we help them use GPT-like technology to go through an email database and quickly assemble emails that will support or refute an allegation? So for example, if someone is claiming that their boss made them work more than 40 hours a week without overtime pay, most of those email conversations are not going to have a keyword, overtime violation in them. So you can't just search for that. But you can ask ChatGPT to look for things like, hey, boss, I'm working late again, or hey, my paycheck is short again. So we're looking at ways to help use GPT technology for that.
Great, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to put out the plea again. If you've got questions, I'm happy to feature you and let you ask our guru. No hands.
That's okay. I'll give you just another redux. Is some of you might be thinking, oh yes, I knew that all, that's spot on. And in that case, absolutely go have yourself a cappuccino. Some of the rest of you may be feeling this is just absolutely going to melt your brain, and that's okay. Lots of us have had our brains melted by this about every 6 months. What I do want to encourage you to do is just use the tools. It's worth it, in my opinion, to pay the $20 a month or $15 a month to subscribe to the premium version of whatever tool. And while being mindful of, obviously you wouldn't upload confidential private business information, but try to use it in your daily life. For example, if you're trying to decide what to wear to a business meeting, give it that context, ask it to do that. If you're interested in the macronutrient content of your lunch, tell it what you're having for lunch and ask it to do that. What you want to do is give yourself the fluency and the practice, just as if you were learning a foreign language. You would maybe go to the streets of Paris and strike up conversations with people in French, asking them about small talk about this, that, or the other. Try to use these tools in small ways in your everyday life. And then the other thing, this may not sit well with many of you, but try to find somebody from Gen Z. So these are people generally 25 years of old and under. And if you can get it, find a middle schooler. And the reason you want these people is they do not really have a memory of working in a world with handheld calculators or newspapers, or when they weren't not only instantly connected to social media, but connected to AI. They are AI natives. And so their way of moving through the world is very different. And you might have to learn some new slang, and you might have to really bite your tongue at times, but it's really interesting to watch their whole experience. In particular, for example, many of them don't talk on the phone anymore. They only text, and they only do AI chats, and they also expect perfect quick responses from humans at all times. And this is a little bit maybe because they're young and impatient, but it's mostly because they've been growing up with their expectation is Netflix will serve them whatever they want instantly. They've never had to wait for the 6 o'clock news. So use it in your daily life and try to learn from the young folks around us.
Jaco, do you mind holding for one moment? We have another person ahead of you. If you could lower your hand and I'll come back to you. So we have a person in the audience, unfortunately, with the same name, Vicky McGee. Could you share your name and ask your question? If you're the person that's in the attendees group that raised your hand, you're being featured right now.
Are they still on mute?
No, they're allowed to talk. I'm going to remute them. And Jaco, why don't you go ahead and go?
Carrie, when you think just of what you've seen people using AI, what are some of the things that you've seen how they use ChatGPT to improve, say, things such as creativity, innovation, and problem solving? Do you have certain examples that's really good for us to sort of know in general?
Yes, a really good way to do it is you want to give it a framework. And so, for example, let's say I'm trying to plan a vacation to Egypt. What you would do is you would first say, I am this many years old. I'm an American woman looking to travel with one person to Cairo, Egypt for 1 week. So you want to give it as much context framing as
Please subscribe to our channel. You can the full presentation along with others at Modern Ideas for Business. Please like or share the video.